Chapter 24, 22 Born in the Netherworld 1. Zhang Yi's voice was cold and sharp, as if it came from the depths of the underworld. Xian Yu Fei Ming, did you think Samuel's blessing would grant you immortality? Today, I will shatter this illusory protection. Xian Yu Fei Ming laughed maniacally, her figure completely transformed into the embodiment of darkness. She spread her arms, and a dark moon shadow rose behind her, plunging the world into darkness. Ha ha! Come on, Zhang Yi. My ability will make all energy and all life my nourishment. The stronger you are, the more invincible I will be. With her roar, the surrounding space suddenly distorted. The first Black Moon priest and the others felt their power being drained away, as if the lunar bloodline within them was burning with Xian Yu Fei Ming's will, turning into black mist to be absorbed by her. Their expressions changed drastically. In order to watch the battle, they moved a certain distance away, thinking that nothing would happen. Unexpectedly, Xian Yu Fei Ming's abilities have grown stronger and stronger to this extent. They quickly continued to move away until they were completely away from the battlefield. Ling floated in the sky, holding a sword in her right hand, and a rich power from the netherworld surged out from the void. With the blessing of the 5 high priests, Zhang Yi's netherworld power is also expanding rapidly. The sword in his hand suddenly turned, and huge black hole-like vortexes appeared all around him. It was as if an undercurrent capable of permeating the entire world was surging out from the black hole. Xian Yu Fei Ming roared to the sky, her power rapidly expanding. Her figure rose from the ground, transforming into a colossal shadow resembling the god of the Black Moon. But just as she was laughing wildly and trying to devour Zhang Yi's power, she suddenly froze. The black mist touched the dark torrent surrounding Zhang Yi, but it dissipated instantly. How is this possible? Xian Yu Fei Ming's laughter abruptly stopped, her eyes flashing with unprecedented shock. Your power, I can't absorb it. Xian Yu Fei Ming's ability, Netherworld Burial, can devour all power and transform it into her own for use. But this time her ability failed. The Black Moon priest's expressions also changed drastically. They were well aware that the great burial of the netherworld was an all-consuming power that could easily seize even their lunar source power. But the dark, abyss-like power emanating from Zhang Yi was independent of everything, as if it did not belong to the rules of this world. Drifting in the dark realm. The first Black Moon priestess murmured softly, her beautiful eyes gleaming with disbelief. This power is completely outside the normal rules of the universe. Zhang Yiling's eyes were cold. She slowly raised her sword-wielding hand. The myriad phenomena of the universe and the dark world overlapped and flowed together. Wherever the sword pointed, time and space became illusory and trembled. Xian Yu Fei Ming, since you are indulging in the illusion of immortality, let me show you what true invincibility is. Xian Yu Fei Ming roared, and the netherworld burial was fully launched. Countless dark vortexes appeared in the void, bearing their fangs and claws as they tried to swallow Zhang Yi. However, Zhang Yi's steps were firm. With a swing of the eternal sword of judgment, the sword energy condensed from 70,000 points of supernatural power was like a torrent that split the heavens and the earth, instantly tearing apart all the darkness in front of him. Zhang Yi and Ling's human form completely merged, his figure tall and upright, surrounded by layers of netherworld light, the eternal judgment sword in his hand gleaming with an incomparably cold brilliance. With each slight tremor of the sword's edge, ripples spread through the void, as if capable of cleaving time and space itself. The power of space-time and time flowed around him, and the dimensional gates of all things opened one after another, like countless layers of crystal curtains, protecting him inside and at the same time bringing him inexhaustible offensive power. The sacred and icy will that flowed through Ling's gaze, united with him, created an indescribable pressure. This aura even suppressed the surging Samuel power within Xian Yu Fei Ming's body, causing her to tremble and her eyes to gradually become frantic, as if even the depths of her soul were being devoured by Zhang Yi's profound power. Xian Yu Fei Ming roared to the sky, and a dark, illusory moon suddenly rose behind him, exuding an aura of boundless death and annihilation. Her ability, Great Burial of the Netherworld, was fully unleashed. All the dark energy converged into chain-like tentacles, sweeping wildly towards Zhang Yi, attempting to devour his power and drag him into the endless netherworld burial pit. However, her face quickly contorted in horror as she discovered that each time the tentacles touched the netherworld light that appeared on Zhang Yi's body, they not only failed to take anything away, but were instead gradually broken down and devoured, turning into reverse-flowing energy that surged back into Zhang Yi's body. It was as if he were an unfathomable black hole, swallowing everything she released. How could this be? My netherworld burial, the power I wielded from His Majesty Samel. How could it be suppressed? Xian Yu Fei Ming roared in a hoarse voice, his voice filled with anger, fear, and resentment. She trembled violently, her eyes almost going mad. The power bestowed upon her by Samel was surging within her, but it was suppressed by Zhang Yi's netherworld power and could not be fully unleashed. Zhang Yi's gaze was cold. He swung his sword horizontally, and the space beneath his feet suddenly collapsed. He approached Xian Yu Fei Ming at a speed that transcended time and space, and the eternal judgment sword in his hand suddenly slashed down. That sword strike contained the distorted power of space-time distortion and the abyssal power devoured by the netherworld. It far exceeded its own power and was much stronger than when it fought Zhenglu. This violent, exhilarating feeling made Zhang Yi's blood tremble with excitement. Where the sword light passed, the space beneath the feet of the Black Moon priests shattered with a deafening roar, and the void emitted a mournful shriek. Xian Yu Fei Ming roared and waved his hands, countless dark bone blades emerging from the depths of the abyss of eternal darkness to meet the sword. The collision was deafening, and countless explosions resounded throughout the world, causing space to shatter layer by layer. The clash between darkness and the light of the underworld was like the rules of two different universes tearing each other apart, causing a devastating shock. The 5 Black Moon priests, watching from the sidelines, were solemn. The first priest exhaled coldly, a rare look of horror flashing in his eyes. This power actually suppressed Samel's gifted power. He's not just a simple ability user. He possesses the aura of the netherworld. How is this possible? The third priest clenched his fists, his voice low and deep. Even the netherworld Grand Burial couldn't devour it. That netherworld power doesn't belong to this world system at all. No wonder even Samel couldn't completely control the situation. King Arthur held the Sword of Oath, his gaze fixed intently on Zhang Yi. At this moment, all of them had flushed faces and were kneeling on the ground. They felt an oppressive aura, like that of a god. Even though they hadn't been affected by the aftershocks of the battle, the mere sight of those two fighting made their legs weak. Now, they seemed to be looking up at two ancient gods fighting each other. Chapter 24-23 Born in the Netherworld 2. At this moment, Zhang Yi, who was wearing Ling's human form, absorbed the power of the 5 Black Moon priests, and his strength was raised to a crazy level in a short period of time. That was an aura that no ordinary person could exude. Even King Arthur, Morgan, Saladin, and other top-tier human figures were completely awestruck at that moment. What terrifying power! An ability index of over 70,000 points. This is no longer human, but an existence that transcends humanity. Saladin's eyes trembled violently from the shock, his face gradually fading into shadow, yet he still felt a tremendous tremor in his heart. The Shadow Lord's pride has been shattered. But soon, he smiled faintly and murmured, "Is this Lord Chaos's trump card?" Even Xian Yu Fei Ming looks so insignificant in front of him. Fortunately, he is our comrade, our ally in the future. Perhaps in the future, the one who can truly stand against the demon god and the apocalypse will not be any of us, but him. Even Zhang Yi's companions were stunned. Yang Xinxin clutched her chest, her eyes welling with tears of excitement. He's too strong. Brother Zhang Yi is really too strong. She had been with Zhang Yi all along. In fact, she admired Zhang Yi, and at the same time, she had a secret she kept to herself. She invested in Zhang Yi like a mother raising a child, a kind of nurturing game. Although Yang Xinxin herself doesn't love fighting, she is happy to cultivate an extraordinary powerhouse. Seeing Zhang Yi's current posture, Yang Xinxin felt extremely satisfied. Her body trembled slightly, and an unusual flush appeared on her face. Fatty Su was so excited his face turned red, and he waved his fist and shouted, "Take her down." "Boss, you're incredibly cool." Brian wagged his tail, but his eyes widened, and a sound like human laughter came from his throat. "Woof woof woof, ha."
Bro, god job.
"This is my real brother. You're the real monster. Xianyu is nothing but trash in front of you. Yes, keep going like this, help me spank her ass hard." After saying that, it sneaked up next to Professor Da Vinci, winked, and said, "I've changed my mind. How about we switch jobs to Tianhai City? I feel like there's more potential with my good brother. You know what I mean, man?" Da Vinci tilted his dead fish eyes and said coldly, "I need to think about it carefully." But looking at Zhang Yi's fighting stance, he had a few more thoughts in his mind. On the battlefield, Xianyu Feiming was sent flying backward by Zhang Yi's sword strike, spitting out black blood mist, and his face contorted in rage. She burned herself wildly, and the illusory moon behind her twisted, transforming into a gigantic maw that devoured everything, attempting to suck the entire world into it. Zhang Yi's eyes were cold and sharp. He raised his sword again, and all the dimensional gates of the myriad phenomena around him opened. The gates of the 3,000 paths appeared all at once, as if they were pushing him to a height that transcended everything. He said arrogantly, "Your power comes from sacrificing souls and begging the demon god. Your foundation is weak. But my strength is solid, all given to me sincerely. What do you have to fight me with? Power that does not belong to you is ultimately an illusion." The next instant, the blade of the eternal judgment sword slashed down. The entire abyss of eternal darkness trembled under this sword strike. Space-time is disrupted, rules are collapsing, and the deep currents of the netherworld pour down like a tsunami. The power of the netherworld was like a surging ocean, instantly engulfing the entire space in front of it, almost shattering the abyss of eternal darkness. Xianyu Feiming's body was instantly severed, and her netherworld burial shattered in the sword light. The Samuel power surging within her body was also swallowed up by the netherworld current. Ah! Xianyu Feiming's screams echoed in the endless abyss. Her figure shattered, reassembled, and shattered again in the darkness until it was completely reduced to countless fragments and mercilessly swallowed by the abyss of eternal darkness. The battlefield fell into dead silence. The Black Moon priests remained silent. King Arthur and Saladin, among others, instinctively knelt on one knee. The Templars, the Knights of the Round Table, and even Zhang Yi's companions all held their breath, staring at Zhang Yi wielding the eternal sword, their eyes filled with shock and fervor. At this moment, only one voice was roaring in their hearts. Zhang Yi at this moment was simply a Superman. The tides of light and darkness collided once more, and the abyss of eternal darkness trembled with a deafening roar, as if the entire space was about to be torn apart. The focus of the battlefield is only one person, Zhang Yi, who is fighting with Ling's body. A dark river surged around him, and a chilling sword light stretched across the heavens and earth. Even though Xianyu Feiming roared and struggled, even though she claimed to be indestructible by borrowing Samuel's power, her belief wavered for the first time in the face of this power from the netherworld. Why? Why is it that I cannot take your power? Her roar turned into fear. Zhang Yi's response was only a cold whisper, because the netherworld does not belong to this world. The sword blades suddenly fell, and the light and shadow completely drowned out Xianyu Feiming's maniacal laughter at that moment. Xianyu Feiming's screams gradually faded away amidst the sword light and dark currents, and her violent and twisted figure was finally shattered by Zhang Yi's sword. Having lost her physical form, her remaining will struggled in the darkness, only to be captured by the power of the abyss of eternal darkness itself. The entire abyss suddenly surged, as if countless invisible tentacles were binding her soul and power tightly, dragging her into that endless abyss. A moment later, Xian Yu Fei Ming vanished completely, leaving not even a trace of his last resentful whisper. Only Samuel's aura gradually subsided, as if he had fallen back into slumber, and the sealing power slowly strengthened, and the abyss of eternal darkness returned to deathly silence once more. The oppressive atmosphere dissipated, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They were still reeling from the shock they had just experienced. King Arthur felt his legs were going numb, so he quickly stood up. "Hey, I accidentally dropped a Bitcoin on the ground. Let me pick it up." King Arthur said it casually. Morgan nodded. "Coincidentally, I dropped a Morgan coin." In midair, as Zhang Yi finally exhausted all of Xian Yu Fei Ming's power, she finally met the end of her life. The torch-lighting ceremony is complete, and Samuel's power cannot be released indefinitely. The final result was that she realized her dream, fell into the abyss of eternal darkness, and became one with Samuel. External forces come and go quickly. Zhang Yi didn't have time to savor the moment. The emptiness he felt from losing that power left him feeling quite lost. "I wish we could do it all over again." Zhang Yi emerged from Ling's body and looked up at the sky, sighing with emotion. Chapter 24 Born in the Netherworld 3. The conspiracy between the Shattered Faction and the Holy See was finally brought to an end. The turmoil on the moon has come to an end. With the flame rekindled, at the very least, those beings on the Silver Moon throne can continue to maintain peace for another 100 or 200 years. Zhang Yi said to himself, "Just stay alive first." 100 or 200 years is nothing to ancient humans who are long-lived, but it is long enough for 6 generations whose lifespan is only 100 years. We'll deal with the future later. This world is just a huge makeshift operation. We can patch things up as we go. Who knows, one day, those sleeping druckers might suddenly die on their own. Thinking optimistically makes life easier. Zhang Yi was somewhat disappointed that Xian Yu Fei Ming had already sacrificed everything, so after killing her, there were no fragments of ether left behind. Meanwhile, the Black Moon priests of the Dark Moon Empire. The first Black Moon priest exhaled a long breath, his gaze fixed on Zhang Yi, his eyes filled with both gratitude and complex emotions. She spoke first, her tone solemn and steady. "Guest from Earth, you have succeeded. If it weren't for your intervention, Xian Yu Fei Ming would have completely taken control of Samuel's power, and the entire Dark Moon Empire would have been plunged into irreversible destruction." The other Black Moon priests also stepped forward, their expressions solemn, and said in unison, "Thank you, people of Earth. You not only saved us, but also strengthened Samuel's seal." Zhang Yi's gaze was calm. The sword of judgment in his hand transformed into a stream of light, disappearing into another dimension along with Ling's human form. The power within Zhang Yi gradually returned to calm. He nodded slowly and smiled. "This is what I should do. If Samuel breaks free, not only your Dark Moon Empire, but the entire moon, and even the entire material world, will suffer a great calamity. Rather than helping you, it's more about helping ourselves." The first Black Moon priest's eyes softened, and then he said earnestly, "You're right. But we will reward you handsomely for your sacrifices." Upon hearing about the reward, Zhang Yi's eyes lit up instantly. The civilization of the Moon people is extremely advanced, at least surpassing that of Earth's humans, the Tsongyuan clan and the Wulwan Empire. After all, they were on the moon, and the risks they had faced for billions of years were nothing more than the confrontation between the two great empires and the need to be constantly on guard against the resurgence of Samuel. There's no need to be overly wary of the existence of other civilizations, allowing their civilizations to continue, and naturally, they also acquire extremely advanced technology and resources. Zhang Yi quickly replied, "We are indeed facing many crises right now, so we won't stand on ceremony with you. What can you possibly offer us? What we lack most is voluntariness, such as ether fragments." Zhang Yi rubbed his hands together and said with a smile, The 5 Black Moon priests looked at each other, and Zhang Yi could clearly see the speechless expression in their eyes. Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow. Sure enough, they wouldn't give this to him so easily. The first Black Moon priest explained, "Fragments of ether are indeed extremely rare, and we cannot give them to you. But what you need more now is knowledge." The first Black Moon priest spoke in a tone that sounded like a kindergarten teacher. In her eyes, the backward civilization of the Earthlings was indeed like a 3-year-old baby. Knowledge. Zhang Yi's expression was somewhat strange. The first Black Moon priest said to Zhang Yi and the others, "Let's not stay here any longer. Samuel's aura is unsettling. Let's go back and talk again." Zhang Yi nodded, and the group followed them back to the Dark Moon Empire. Upon entering the Grand Hall, everyone sat down, and only then did King Arthur and the others finally feel at ease. The mission has ended, but many people have died in the process. The entire Norse pantheon, except for Hela, was almost completely wiped out. Once they return to Earth, the entire world order will be rewritten. But at that moment, they had no time to think about that matter. The precious knowledge spoken of by the Black Moon priests was what they cared about most. The first Black Moon priestess sat in the chief's chair, gazing at the crowd below, and began, "In your view, the way to become stronger is to obtain more ether fragments." These words startled everyone below. Professor Leonardo da Vinci frowned instantly, a thoughtful expression on his face. King Arthur and Saladin, among others, wore expressions of shock. Besides tapping into their own supernatural potential, the only other way for superhumans to become stronger is to devour the essence of other superhumans. As for developing potential, there's not much anyone can teach them. It's mostly something they figure out on their own. Strictly speaking, for 5 years after the apocalypse, the Earthlings were exploring the field of supernatural abilities with their eyes closed. The first Black Moon priest smiled faintly, his eyes showing a mixture of concern for the infant and a hint of shock. "That's understandable. You haven't been developing your supernatural abilities for very long, and there's been a historical gap. As a result, you haven't yet developed a complete training program for supernatural abilities." She spread her hands and explained, "Let me give you a simple and easy-to-understand example. The food that people eat is made by planting seeds in the ground and waiting for them to mature before eating them. But you try to fill your stomachs by eating the grains of the land." She sighed deeply. Absorbing ether fragments to increase strength is far too extravagant. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes slightly, just as he had expected. Zhang Yi had gradually come to understand this principle, but he still listened carefully. Because he only had the idea, but did not yet have a mature system for enhancing his power. Others were also listening intently. The prospect of being personally taught by a more advanced civilization how to become stronger filled them with fervent excitement, like martial arts protagonists who had just received a secret martial arts manual. This is a revolutionary moment. The conversation with the Black Moon priests may change the entire landscape of Earth. The Black Moon priests exchanged glances, and finally the third Black Moon priest spoke, his voice low and resonant. "The entire surface universe is essentially composed of power. Whether it is stars, mountains, and rivers, or the flesh and soul of living beings, they are all different forms of power. So-called evolution and cultivation are just appearances. The true essence is devouring and transformation." These words resonated like a thunderclap in everyone's hearts. Zhang Yi frowned slightly. "Devour and transform?" The first Black Moon priest nodded and slowly explained, "That's right. Our Black Moon lineage has guarded the seal of Samuel for thousands of years, and our knowledge far surpasses that of you Earthlings." Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.